Good morning. With that acknowledgement of Mother Earth, our blue boat home in the cosmos on this Mother's Day, I invite us all to decide that we can do without our cell phones ringing for the next hour. And so to do what we need to do to silence their sound, now's our chance. And I invite all of us who have it in us this morning to open our hearts and take a breath to focus our intention so that we can feel as present as possible to ourselves and to each other as we greet the people around us and notice who near us might yet want or need a genuine hello and an honest welcome. With that, I invite you to say hello to the people around you. Thank you. Thank you for doing that so beautifully. Our land acknowledgement this morning is offered by Sue Gregory with the words that Lindsay crafted beautifully for last Sunday.
This is by Lindsay. Imagine how a tiny acorn could grow into a huge oak tree. With roots traveling down and out as wide as its branches. We have trees like that in this county. I like to go stand under them. Imagine how a large basket of acorns soaked and ground up and cooked could feed a family. Imagine that people from another land came to your land, first a few at a time and suddenly by the thousands, harming your family, your people, your oak tree, and the natural world where your people had lived for thousands of years. Imagine a genocide. Imagine a profound silence around that genocide in the history books, in the community, in the legal standing, in the lack of reparations. Imagine generations later how hard it would be to stand up, to speak up, to draw attention. Each Sunday, we place a basket of acorns on our altar as a visible, ever-present symbol of our commitment to support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in their effort to regain federal recognition. We commit ourselves to help them in these and other efforts to stabilize their people in whatever ways we can, under their guidance and at their request. Imagine now that the Nisenan have regained land, have regrown their presence here in their homeland, and achieved federal recognition. Imagine the Nisenan, from children to elders, thriving.
Tracy Pepper offers our chalice lighting words this morning.
Good morning. To Renew the Spark of Imagination by Reverend Michelle Collins. Here we are, together, bearers of imagination, creators of new worlds. It is our imagination that lifts us beyond despair, that whispers, "What if?" and dares us to answer. Today, we gather to renew that spark, to embrace the power to dream. Come, let us imagine boldly and worship together.
Thank you, Tracy and Sue. Our candle of compassion, resistance, and resilience acknowledges and invites us to bear witness to the immediate and the ongoing ways we are each and together choosing to meet this moment in the journey of our community, our nation, and our world. With its lighting, may we invite our compassionate action on behalf of those placed in harm's way. Compassion for ourselves, too, when we struggle with how we or others are reacting to what arises. Resistance called forth when the violation of our deep values demands it. And in hope and celebration of the resilience that rises in ourselves and in the human spirit, in life on this planet and in the earth itself. To let life match reality, right? Sometimes the lighting is difficult. We will be working on that, perhaps. But in the meantime, we take a piece of the light and we send it with our young ones on their way to Kids Connection as we sing. The light is dark this morning. The light is working hard to stay lit. With that, I invite us to sing This Little Light of Mine. Takes on special meaning this morning. I'm going to let that light shine.
Good morning. And welcome to all of you here with us today, including those in the Channing Room and on Zoom. My name is Elizabeth Rose, and I, along with Cheryl Morris, will be your worship associates today. In honor of Mother's Day, I would like to express my gratitude for those who have nurtured and cared for our children, especially those moms like mine whose patience was sorely tested, yet whose love remains steadfast. I also recognize that not everyone has a positive association with mothers or motherhood. Today, we continue to explore our theme of imagination and how we might turn our boundaries into a more expansive horizon with new possibilities. Speaking of mothers and horizons, let me share that 40 years ago, Dr. Anna Fisher strapped herself to a rocket and became the first mother in space. Anna was part of the 1978 astronaut class when NASA started accepting women and people of color for the first time ever. She was chosen for a mission in 1983 when she was 8 months pregnant, and then stepped into the Space Shuttle Discovery November 8th, 1984, with a 14-month-old daughter watching from below. The seemingly impossible became possible. In one of my favorite stories, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, the idea of believing in impossible things is not only accepted, but encouraged. A favorite excerpt from this story has Alice saying, "There's no use trying. One can't believe in possible things." To which the Queen of Hearts replied, "I dare say you haven't had much practice. When I was your age, I always did it for half an hour a day. Why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast." I imagine that many of you may do the same today before lunch. Here's to doing impossible things together. Welcome.
Nice, nice. When medieval map makers got to the edges of the known world on their maps, they would sometimes write in Latin in the spaces just outside those edges, "Here are lions." Or they would draw dragons or sea monsters or mythological creatures to indicate that this was an unexplored area and therefore dangerous. Beware. On one of the oldest known globes of the Earth, the Hunt-Lennox globe, from the very beginning of the 1500s, written at the edges of known territory is the warning in Latin, "Hic sunt dracones." Here are dragons. These were the edges of the known world that both frightened and beckoned, places of danger and possibility. Either way, territory of one's imagination. Such edges in many cultures around the globe have always led most people to stay safely this side of the boundaries, and have also always led some people to go exploring beyond the horizon. It depends on people's tolerance for risk and their age and the strength and energy of their imagination. In our invitation to this service, the second in our month-long exploration of living love through the practice of imagination, we shared author Barry Lopez's insight from one of his final in-depth interviews. He said, "The effort of the imagination is to turn the boundary into a horizon. The boundary says, 'Here and no further.' The horizon says, 'Welcome.'" That's why we have a blank banner this month, in case you weren't here last week. Our theme is imagination, maximal imagination invitation with our blank banner. The effort of the imagination is to turn the boundary into a horizon. Our invitation today is to consider the thresholds in our lives, the edges, and to notice whether we're perceiving them as boundaries, here and no further, or horizons, beckoning to us beyond what we already know, and to ask ourselves whether any of our current boundaries might be turned into horizons, perhaps with the help of our imagination. Maybe a personal edge or boundary or horizon is already coming to mind and heart for you. Some place of stuckness or impasse in your life. Where in your personal life have you been sensing a wall, what feels like a barrier, a border, a boundary beyond which you cannot see and beyond which it has felt too frightening, too difficult, too confusing, too impossible to pass? Or where in our shared life, as human beings, as citizens of this nation or the world or this community, where are you sensing a wall, a barrier, a border, a boundary beyond which it's difficult to see, and beyond which it has felt too frightening, too difficult, too confusing, too impossible to pass? Is it possible that that boundary that comes to mind and heart for you is or could become a horizon, beckoning to whatever it is that lies just out of sight, over the edge? In April, on the theme of joy, I spoke of being guided now by what we long for rather than what elicits our negative reactions, which is a whole lot of stuff. In the interview I referenced a moment ago, Barry Lopez was speaking of his own life and his own extensive journey and his own personal yearning, but he was at the same time speaking to our shared journeys when he said, if you stay in this place of fear, this place meaning wherever that is for you, whether you perceive yourself to be inside a boundary, if you stay in this place of fear, you will not find the landscape that your imagination is yearning for. The landscapes that our hearts and our spirits are longing for, I would add. If you stay in this place of fear, you will not find the landscape you are looking for. Here's where imagination comes in, because beyond the horizon, there be dragons. The unknown. We have to imagine it. That's the only possibility. That's its essence from this vantage point. It's beyond our line of sight. That's why we started so playfully last Sunday, stretching our imagination muscles with the colorful Rorschach images and the wooden spoon of possibilities and the instant group poetry to entice us beyond what we see at first and to practice using that imagination muscle. This morning, to help us stretch our time and imagination horizon in yet another way, we're going to be crafting written entries for a time capsule to be opened 30 years from now by the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountain members of the future.
Wait, Rev Kevin? So we're going to do time travel?
Yeah, we're thinking 30 years out from now.
So, yeah, we're going to need like some equipment or some gear or something, right, Cheryl? Absolutely. We're gonna,
sounds like you have some thoughts about that.
Let's think. We got to think quickly. Okay, I've got an idea. You got to come with me, though. Come with me.
We'll be right back.
We'll be back. We are good. Good to go. Mission launch.
This community is currently in the midst of a whole series of 30th anniversaries. This coming week, in fact, the anniversary of the very first signing of the membership book by this community's initial 29 members. We'll be celebrating their imagination and that milestone next Sunday. They definitely risked imagining beyond the horizon. Today, we invite those of you here in the building to make a series of 3 entries on acid-free, archival quality paper on the clipboards. If you're in the room and don't have paper, we have additional paper and pens. And if you're on Zoom or watching this service later, know that we will have more pieces of paper and clipboards and instructions here over the next several weeks so that when you are in the building, you can add your contribution. Or if you live far away or spending time away, I invite you to email your entries to me or to Siobhan in the office, and we'll print them out for you and add them to the time capsule. And Eileen will put the addresses, our email addresses for myself and Siobhan in the chat. So for the first of these three entries, I invite you to take a deep breath or two. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable enough. And I invite you to notice what comes to mind and heart when I ask, what is one thing that is true or real or happening right now in our lives and in the world that marks this time in history? One thing that is a truth about now that marks this time in history. It could be something or someone that's particularly popular or noteworthy right now. It could be a book, a movie, a performer, an author, an athlete, an unusual event or milestone of the past several months. What's one thing out of the many that marks this time uniquely? And when you're ready, I invite you to take a moment, but when you're ready, I invite you to designate it with the number 1 on your paper and to write your answer in a few legible words. That's for my sake. Legible words are a simple, brief sentence. Imagine people reading your words 30 years from now. What might you want to mark for them about this moment in our collective time? And in so doing, help them realize perhaps something about their time. One thing that marks this moment. I see some very thoughtful writing. For the second of the 3 entries, I invite you to take a deep breath again. Center yourself in your body. Close your eyes if that feels comfortable enough. And notice what comes to mind and heart when I ask, what is one of your personal favorite things in the world and your life right now? Something that you love or love to do, something that you treasure, that you are glad for, and that may or may not be available in 30 years. Could be a food, a product, a saying, a meaningful book, an event, a location, an activity. What's one of your personal favorite things in the world and in your life right now? And when you're ready, I invite you to designate it with the number 2 and to write your answer legibly. Imagine people reading your words 30 years from now, reflecting on their own lives and loves and favorites as they read your words. What's one of your favorite things? Let them know something about you, and in so doing, invite them to realize something about themselves. Something favorite for you. You'll have a chance to continue to finish this thought. We're not going to do it yet, but I want to give you a heads up and time to let it simmer in the background. Later, toward the end of the service, for our third entry, I'm going to ask you to activate your imagination in order to travel 30 years into the future. Let us know if you need a hat to support you in that. I'll be inviting you to travel in your imagination to this Unitarian Universalist community of the mountains 30 years from now in 2055, picturing where it might be and who might be involved and what it looks like and feels like and who it might be serving. And with all of that in mind and heart later, I'll invite you then to write one of your deep hopes for that time and that community. I'll be asking you toward the end of the service to know one thing you deeply hope or wish or pray will be true then, 30 years from now, in 2055. It will be an invitation to move beyond the boundary of this moment, to perceive what's happening now as a horizon rather than a boundary. And to know that dragons or lions or sea monsters or not, there is a time beyond the edge that we can see. I invite you to let the idea simmer in the background as we mark the joys and sorrows of our lives. A ritual not unrelated to this third entry that will list your deep hopes for the future. As we prepare to take time to notice and to honor the joys and the sorrows, all the feelings and the deep concerns and joys that are in our hearts, I want to lead in with an acknowledgement of Sophia McCain's journey. So Sophia McCain, who is both a shaper of this congregation and a shapee of this congregation, is studying at seminary. In fact, at Meadville Lombard Seminary. So I wore my seminary stole today. This is the Meadville Lombard logo, which happens to go with the colors so well. So Sophia's in the midst of that journey, and Sophia will be heading to what is known as CPE, Clinical Pastoral Education in Olympia, right? So this is chaplaincy training. It's often in a hospital setting where you learn how to be with a whole wide range of people in often very difficult circumstances. So, Sophia, we want to say, good journey and bless you on your way as you go to this piece of the learning. So I invite you, as you're holding your intentions, your thoughts, your prayers in this time, to hold Sophia and Sophia's journey, both for Sophia's sake, but also for the sake of Unitarian Universalism, for which I am very pleased that Sophia's there. And of course, for those who know, I want to acknowledge 2 deaths. Ray Bacigalupi last week and Bana Jovanovic this week. 2 members associated with the congregation. Ray is a friend, and his family is here today. And Bane, the spouse of Lynn Jovanovic, who's currently serving as this congregation's secretary of the board. 2 really profound losses. When I was meeting with Shauna and Ray's family last week, and we were sharing memories and stories, I think it was Kira who pulled out Ray's book, Was the Ego Butterfly, which is a word that Ray coined when he was in his 40s. He writes that he crafted that name for himself with the hope of someday embodying the magic and power of the wizard, Wizza, the strength and clear sight of the eagle, the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha, and the transformational quality of the butterfly. Kira read one of Ray's poems, which I think is a beautiful example of horizon imagination. So often what we bring to this joys and sorrows time is some experience in between what is and what we wish would be or could be, right? Somewhere in that spectrum. I offer Ray's words, in a fair world, to invite us into our own reflection on our lives. In a fair world, each would care about the other person's needs. Those needs would get met through understanding and love. Goals, hopes, dreams would be talked about, and withholding would be almost non-existent. In a fair world, trust in the other person would be commonplace. There would be no excuses for hurting. If someone were hurt, the other person would know and would listen and be there. What was to be gotten, such as kindness, love, attention, material things, and fulfilling of dreams, would never be bargained for. Transgressions into another's boundaries would be considered accidents, and the transgressor always willing to leave when the other let it be known in a kind way. In a fair world, family life wouldn't be a particular way, and children wouldn't blame the parents, and parents wouldn't blame the children. Differences, physical, mental, and emotional, would be exciting, showing the differences that abound in the world. They would bring joy, happiness, and wonder, not ridicule or shame. No one would have to look, act, or think like another person. Love would be the password into the household, leaving a little sad. Closeness would feel good, and mistakes a learning process for adults and the children. The home would be a place of warmth and recuperation, as well as shared feelings, thoughts, and events. Within the fair family, the world would be an adventure, and the family a ship. I invite you to search your own space between what is and what could be, or what you wish would be. And if you're in the room, to join us in this physical ritual if you choose. to pick up a stone from the table here and to place it in the bowl of water. That imaginative hope of what could be, but also your acknowledgement of what is. If you're on Zoom, you have a chance to type into the chat, or if you don't want to write what's actually going on for you, you can put simply a 0 or an O as the equivalent of a stone that marks that something meaningful is happening for you, even if you don't add words to it. I invite us to use this time to enter it thoughtfully in a way that works for you. If that's breathing deeply and attending to your breathing, if that's lifting up your prayers, if that is feeling the energy of the people around you, the people walking up, if that is simply to be still for a moment in a very busy world, I invite you to enter this time thoughtfully and well together. I invite you to come forward as feels right to you. I've placed a few extra stones with George Dunstan, who's our lay pastoral care person today, aware that it's not just the stones, but actually the sound that is part of the experience of sharing this together. And since I saw Jessica, I want to celebrate Jessica's wedding from last Saturday to Chris. Congratulations! It was really, a really beautiful and love-filled wedding. A joy, a clear joy to celebrate. I invite Cheryl to offer our prayer and meditation.
A Prayer for Imagination by Rosemary Watola Trommer. This is inspired by the words of Barry Lopez, used with Rosemary's permission from her blog, 100 Falling Veils. There are so many boundaries in me, so many limitations, prisons, places where a line has been drawn, perhaps by another, perhaps by me. The lines say, stop. The lines say, don't be curious. They say, make yourself small, now smaller. But imagination is the big pink eraser that rubs out the lines, smears and disappears them. Sometimes it's more like a tear, a small rip in the known that bids me look through the lines as if peeking through a curtain. And sometimes the imagination takes a line and bends it, twists it like a clown with a balloon, until what I thought was a boundary becomes bird, becomes crown, becomes flower. Or it turns the line perpendicular, so what I thought was a deadline becomes path. I want to listen for the voices beyond the boundaries, want to open to what I can't yet see. I want to hear the welcome of the horizon, and like a bell calling me home, let it lead me.
Barry Lopez, nature lover and climate champion, wrote the extensive story of his life journey and his garnered insights in his final book, Horizon, in which he raised very movingly that distinction between boundary and horizon. Throughout his life, his extensive world travels, and his deep, thoughtful time with members of multiple indigenous communities, he felt through this distinction between boundary and horizon. It was after his death in 2020 that one more book of his work was assembled and published. I quoted from it last September when I shared his encouragement to embrace fearlessly the burning world. The burning world. Embrace fearlessly the burning world. In this trembling moment, he wrote, Is it still possible to face the gathering darkness and say to the physical earth and to all its creatures, including ourselves, fiercely and without embarrassment, I love you, and to embrace fearlessly the burning world? His deep effort near the end of his life was to embrace a genuine I love you in response to as many people and as much of life and the reality of the world as he possibly could, even a burning world, a world on fire. His goal, in essence, was to treat everyone and everything as a horizon rather than a boundary. It's a very universalist goal. I often think of universalism as rooted in the impulse to include all, to let all into our sphere of embrace and love and care. But Barry reminds us that it's also about ourselves reaching out beyond the borders, the boundaries, reaching out beyond to let ourselves become part of all. It's not just about us including, but being willing to be included. Can we, as Rosemary Watola Tromer invites, allow imagination to take what appears to be an unchanging line, perhaps drawn by others, perhaps drawn by us, and let our imagination serve as the big pink eraser that at least smudges the line, maybe even removes it, or that takes that seemingly permanent line and bends it, twists it like a clown with a balloon until it, what we thought was a boundary, becomes a bird, a crown, a flower. Can we let the rip in our life, the tear in our heart, become the crack through which we allow ourselves to peek into something beyond the pain and beyond what we already know? Can we allow imagination to turn the lines perpendicular so that what we thought was a deadline becomes a path? Can we listen for the voices beyond the boundaries and open ourselves to what we can't yet see? Can we hear the welcome of the horizon, even this horizon, whichever this horizon is for you right now, and like a bell calling us home, let it lead us? There's the invitation to approach our personal boundaries. What's your boundary these days? The one that you wish, hope, dream, pray could maybe become a horizon instead. To return to our practicing for just such a purpose, to strengthen our imagination muscles, a final capsule entry. I invite you to take a deep breath, close your eyes if that feels comfortable enough, and to notice what comes to mind and heart when I ask you again to draw on your imagination to travel 30 years into the future, into this community 30 years from now, picturing what it might look like, feel like, where it might be, who might be here, and who it might be serving. And with all of that in mind and heart, what is one of probably many, what is one of your deep hopes for that time and that community? One thing you deeply hope or wish or pray will be true then in 2055 for those people beyond the edge of today's horizon. I invite you to designate it with the number 3. Imagine people 30 years from now reading your words, reflecting on what will be true for them then, and imagining how they might feel knowing your hopes, your wishes, your prayers for them, reaching out all the way back from this day. It's a genuine time capsule. It even says so right on it. It's etched. We're not certain of exactly when, but somewhere in this celebration of 30ths, we will find the spot to, we think, bury this with your words and some others. During the offering time, this is going to come around. I invite you to fold your piece of paper in half one way and then half the other way when you're finished, and to place it inside. And because practice is the order of the day, not merely concepts or ideas, and because you'll have your own boundaries to approach, I want to leave you with one final piece of insight into the nature of humanity and the practice of imagination, or redreaming, as Barry Lopez put it. Actually, what I really want to do is tie all of this to the book of Revelation and the popularity of apocalypse and end times fascism and the boundaries we're facing together. But that's an entire service worth, so watch for the follow-up in late July or early August. Today I want to leave you with this. I want to lift up the reality of children, including the children that each of us has been, and therefore the child that we still hold within us. And if you have children in your life, better yet. In an effort backed by NASA, Dr. George Land studied 1,600 children over 10 years, presenting them with problems, boundaries, and asking them to come up with multiple ideas, horizons. 98% of 4 and 5-year-olds scored at the creative genius level, able to generate a large number of novel and unique ideas. By age 10, only a third retained their creative genius. By age 15, that number dropped to 12%. And by adulthood, less than 2%, fewer than 2 people out of 100, remained creative geniuses, at least in their action. Thus, the invitation to practice our imagination. There are various takes on why that decline in creativity happens and how over time we learn to perceive fewer possibilities, but one takeaway is the importance of divergent thinking, generating many ideas, and the hazards of focusing on, having as a goal, convergent thinking, evaluating and choosing the single best answer. Perhaps the practice in this case is to more often keep moving past that first answer, the apparently best idea or action, past the singular option or the usual way we do things, even when it comes to something as simple as with which hand we hold our toothbrush, or which shoe or pant leg we attend to first, or how we get out of bed. Something other than our usual response to someone who irks us or who mystifies us. Something different than our usual response to ourselves making a mistake. Something other than the path we usually take. Can we practice imagining more than one possibility? And so inch our way back toward that genius level creativity once again, where apparently 98% of us have already been. Some of us many years ago. The 2% of adults among us who retain that genius level creativity actively can serve as models and inspiration and support. So the next time someone presents multiple options when you're trying to get to the one, maybe it can serve as a reminder, an invitation to do our own practice, strengthen our own muscles. Perhaps, in fact, most certainly, for most challenges and decisions in the day, there is another way than the path we are used to taking, or the one we usually take. Perhaps, in fact, most certainly, there are several other ways. We might have to urge ourselves to find them, and so strengthen our ability and willingness to find new ways to meet more significant challenges then. But let's practice turning boundaries into horizons, if we can. Starting close in, one imperfect attempt at a time, so that we'll be able to bring our innate, if sometimes rusty, genius creativity to the burning world at hand. So may we be. And watch for the time capsule to come around.
While we expand horizons and imagine possibilities, let's acknowledge what we're already doing and what more could be accomplished if we just stretch a bit. UUCM is entirely supported by pledges, donations, and fundraising efforts. Besides maintaining our church building, paying our staff, and making possible our many and varied programs, we also support local nonprofits that share our values. Each month, we have a different community partner that receives 50% of the offerings we collect on Sunday mornings. Now, imagine another organization that began, as ours did, with the vision, know-how, and hard work of just a few people, and is now a vital part of the community. Care Crisis Nursery was started 20 years ago and provides a unique service to families who are facing a crisis or who are under the court jurisdiction. The nursery is a safe, comfortable, home-like setting for young children receiving respite care. And the nursery also provides court-ordered supervised visits for parents who are working to reunify their family. In the spirit of our UU value of generosity, I encourage you to imagine the possibilities for our community and for Care Crisis Nursery. The greeters can come forward, and the slide will tell you additional ways to give. Thank you for envisioning possibilities and giving generously. We dedicate these gifts to supporting a church, a community, and a world in which all may be safe to grow and thrive. Thank you.
If you're the person in the spotlight today, happy Mother's Day. If you're the people spotlighting others, happy Mother's Day. And if you're a person for whom Mother's Day is hard, either because of a loss or mothering that you maybe didn't receive, may you find meaning in this day in some way that meets you where you are. I want to thank Cheryl and Elizabeth for both playful and meaningful service planning and preparation, thinking about boundaries and horizon. Thank you. Elizabeth's idea to have hats, have props. I appreciate both of you very much. Sue and Tracy, thanks very much for bringing your voices to the reading. And Toby, really beautiful music today. Thank you very much. Cypress and Steve, steady people for us in the back. Thank you very much. Eileen, also steady online. Flowers from Teresa Houtman and an altar arranged by Shanti. Oh, beautiful. Flowers are one of the gifts of this moment for me, that exuberance. Lori and Gwen and Jean and Laura, stellar group of greeters this morning. George for being our lay pastoral care associate today. Linda and Cheryl for working with our young ones. Please thank them when you see them, Cheryl Spalding and Linda Siska. And Cynthia and Tracy and Joyce, and I'm sure others were helping set up refreshments and cleaning up with refreshments. Thank you for all of that. The book group meets today at 12:30. The Women's Circle gathers on Monday evening. There's a graphic design series of sessions with Jenny and Jenny's daughter, Tamar. There's an elevator speech workshop on next Saturday. We did this in a series of 3 sessions. It was the most, I think, profound effect anything we've done has had on people, quite honestly. Yeah. People left feeling more, I think, connected and grounded and more you than before. So I encourage you to join that. There's also a starting point coming up for folks who want to dive deep into what's coming, and we have a concert coming up at the end of the month. On the 31st, Toby and I will anchor a concert with Kate and Randy and a couple friends of ours. It'll be a beautiful concert. There's a $30 ticket price, but if that's prohibitive for you, there are options. And if you're a person who can't be here and wants to support somebody else's being here, that's an option too. Keith is taking names for people for concert tickets. Always please check out the website. Finally, I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing the song Wo Ya Ya. So I love songs that sometimes have a sound that the words don't have particular meaning, so you can bring your meaning to them. So when we get to the Wo Ya Ya's, I invite you to have in mind and heart and energy your particular boundaries and horizons. I invite you to put it into the singing when we get to the Wo Ya Ya. The words and wisdom of Michelle Collins again, adapted slightly to send us on our way. Here we are, together, my friends, bearers of imagination, creators of new worlds. May our imagination lift us beyond despair, whisper, "What if?" and dare us to answer. May each gathering together renew that spark, invite us to embrace the power to dream and redream, call us to meet the horizon and imagine boldly together. Remembering that we are together in this, we share these good words, this benediction with each other as we move from here to what's next. Together, let us carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. Join us for refreshments and interaction if you're here, and we'll see you next week for 2 questions and a welcome of some of our very newest members.